Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Grenada's Prime Minister urged not to follow the path of the last NDC administration and allow vigilance to be his watchword. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 7th July 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. In a WhatsApp note circulated far and wide, Grenada's new Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is urged to pay close attention to the activities taking place in the Office of the Accountant General. Mr. Deacon Mitchell should never allow what took place in 2008 to 2013 period under the then Congress government of Tillman Thomas to repeat itself. The defeated New National Party of Keith Mitchell was able to get the then Accountant General to give priority and payment to businesses that were owned and operated by its known supporters at the expense of others. The new Prime Minister should issue instructions to the Office of the Accountant General to consult with him before authorizing large payments to any business house. He should also look carefully at the NNP-controlled Public Service Commission to ensure that a number of NNP loyalists in the public service are not confirmed in key positions in very short order. It should be noted that the defeated Keith Mitchell made sure that he appointed people to sit on the PSC to do his bidding in government. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell should guard against becoming a victim of the system that was set up in public service by Keith Mitchell in his ambitions to create a one-party state on the island. In other news, Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown speaks on regional transport on the fringes of the CARICOM Summit in Suriname. Ragib Aparicio of ABS News reports.
It's critical that we resolve the issues of connectivity of both maritime and air transportation. You can't sustain an integration movement if you can't move goods and people effectively. And that has been a major problem within the integration movement since its inception.
Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honourable Gaston Brown, says improving intra-regional travel is one of the issues he is hoping to address with his fellow regional leaders.
And we're hoping that we can come up with a new model for air transportation, one in which we can sustain air transportation to the extent that we have a model in which member states will contribute. So you have a model of shared burden and shared benefit.
The Prime Minister laments countries in the past have benefited from regional travel initiatives without paying their fair share of contributions. This, he says, cannot continue.
It will require some level of subsidy, but when you look at the economic gains and even the social gains, it's public good to have reliable regional transportation, and therefore the countries of the region should not hesitate to provide whatever subsidy is necessary.
Prime Minister Brown believes efficiency will be key.
We need aircraft that can carry people and also carry products. And similarly, with the maritime transportation, it should be a vessel that can carry people and to carry products. So that you don't have to rely exclusively on carrying individuals, but at the same time, you have a combination of both. And by so doing, we'll be able to move people and to move goods more effectively within the region and certainly to sustain our integration movement.
The CARICOM Heads of Government meeting concluded Tuesday. Rakib Aparicio reporting for ABS News.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pear meantime says CARICOM needs a better version of LIAT. Jamie J. Roger of ABS News has more.
To put it directly, colleagues, CARICOM needs LIAT, or CARICOM needs a better version of LIAT.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pear underscoring regional transportation's importance to CARICOM's integration goals.
Unless one of our island-owned carriers emerges as a truly regional carrier, not only in terms of countries covered, but with a philosophical commitment to making regionalism work for CARICOM citizens, then our regional aspirations will continue to be an elusive dream.
Liat, which has served the region in this regard for decades, faced liquidation in 2020 and is currently under administration.
I wish to commend our Antiguan colleague, Prime Minister Gaston Brown, for his efforts in keeping Liat alive.
Prime Minister Pierre says instead of the people's need, the region has allowed external market forces to guide its discussions on Caribbean sea and air transport.
In doing so, we have not only closed our air and sea spaces for business expansion and growth for our local investors, but we have also surrendered the future of our unification projects to the whims of service providers whose only interest is profit.
He said St. Lucia will work with CARICOM to solve the region's transportation challenges by supporting any effort to find a lasting, reliable, and sustainable airline or consortium of airlines to service the region. The Prime Minister says St. Lucia would also be interested in a ferry as an additional transportation option. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Pfizer vaccine is approved for children in the Bahamas, according to this ZNS News item.
All children under the age of 5 now eligible to receive the Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. This after the FDA recently deemed both safe and effective for that age group. Now, despite vaccine uptake in the country being low, President and CEO of Doctors Hospital, Dr. Charles Diggers, believes Bahamians will move to get their children vaccinated.
Pediatricians seem to be very keen and very pleased that the approval, I think, for 5-year-olds and up has already been given. So I'd imagine that the parents, given all the scientific information, the evidence to support the safety profile of the vaccine, that parents would absolutely have their kids vaccinated. That's my opinion. Get as much information as you can and have a very sensible conversation with your pediatrician about whether it's something that your child should do.
With the Independence holiday just days off, Diggers anticipates that, as usual, COVID-19 cases will again rise.
There may be an increase in cases because of the transmissibility, and people are loath when they're outdoors to mask up or distance up. So you may get an increase in cases. The fortunate thing is that the severity of cases currently is going to mean that it is less likely that we would have to deal with individuals who need to be admitted for severe and serious illness. The theme is, if you're not yet completely vaccinated, get vaccinated so that if you get the infection, it's not going to be serious or severe.
In the meantime, Bahamian Prime Minister reports on carbon credits inasmuch as more action is needed on the greenhouse emissions.
Progress being made in the fight to combat climate change. Fresh off the heels of his visit to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, Prime Minister Davis maintains his voice is being heard in the international community as some efforts are in the works to address this global crisis.
In that sense, coming from COP, the Climate Fund has invested $125 million in a project in Grand Bahama, the Coral Beta. And they have another project to deal with agriculture in Grand Bahama, which they're also investing a huge sum of money. Again, that's because of us talking with them. So we know about that investment already. The other one has been agreed, but not yet consummated.
Now, while optimistic of the ardent strides regarding climate resilience, the Prime Minister believes more action is needed on this serious issue.
The industrialized countries who would have profited from the greenhouse emissions and who I say owe us islands that have been the victim of their greenhouse emissions, they need to pay. Now they've been paying, they've been saying a lot. They've been saying the right things. They continue to say the right things. But as I reminded our group last week, for me, I'm pledged fatigue.
Through amendments to the Miscellaneous Provisions Criminal Proceedings Bill 2021 in Trinidad and Tobago, Attorney General Reginald Amor is seeking to relax the rule against double jeopardy. Here are some details in this TTT News report.
In the House of Representatives on Tuesday, the Attorney General said double jeopardy provides a degree of finality and conclusiveness to defendants, victims, and witnesses, and persons involved in criminal proceedings. The rule is not a fundamental right enshrined in the Constitution, but has been recognized as a common law and statute for centuries. By definition, double jeopardy is a rule which prevents a person from being tried for the same offense more than once.
Madam Speaker, a strict application of the rule has led to situations where guilty persons are allowed to escape the arm of justice. Advances in forensic science and DNA testing have a fundamental impact on the rule, as it is now possible to produce new and compelling evidence pointing toward guilt long after an offense was committed.
Mr. Armour said the rule will not automatically gain constitutional protection simply because it existed prior to the enactment of the Constitution, adding that abolition of the rule will not infringe on any entrenched rights. As such, a special majority of the House will not be needed to pass the bill. But MP for Chaguanas West, Dinesh Rambali, said he disagreed with the amendments to the bill. He called the proposed relaxed measure a knee-jerk reaction to what he described as an uncontrolled spike in murders over the past few days.
This bill will ultimately be premised on scientific advancements, and I think I even heard that language being used by the Attorney General when he was piloting. And the scientific advancements that we have seen and we would continue to see in the first world countries that have implemented similar pieces of legislation, it is something that is absent here in Trinidad and Tobago.
An opposition member of parliament in Trinidad and Tobago says a lack of confidence in the police service is the root cause of the fiery protests in part of East Port of Spain on Monday. TV6's Jewel Brown reports.
In this country, with great respect, policemen do not have confidence in policemen. Forget the rest of the population. If you poll the police officers, they will tell you they have no confidence in the next police officer. Far less the population. Yesterday, that madness and mayhem had at the root the loss of confidence in the police.
Opposition MP Dr. Rudal Munilal has referenced the fiery protests that occurred in parts of East Port of Spain on Monday, as the House of Representatives on Tuesday debated a bill meant to provide that acquittals for specified offences would not be a bar to prosecution for the same offence where there is new and compelling evidence or tainted acquittal, and it is in the interest of justice that there be a retrial. Dr. Munilal then referenced the recent announcement by former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith that he plans to reapply for the job of top cop.
When Gary Griffith was there was a 47% confidence in the police service. That has gone because he has gone. Maybe he comes back, I don't know.
Dr. Munilal also made an apparent reference to the shooting deaths of 3 men from the Betham area in a police-involved incident on Saturday.
I am not pronouncing whether the police is right or wrong. I don't know. I don't investigate that. But what I'm saying is that is rooted. A reporter was on social media yesterday. He said when he landed at a street in Port of Spain, they were pelting him because they thought he was police. And then amazingly, the protesters apologized to him when they found out he was not police. That is a lack of confidence.
He then gave his assessment of what is required to ensure there are no reoccurrences of the kinds of protests in parts of East Port of Spain that occurred on Monday.
And dealing with those events is not just arms and ammunition and weapons and manpower. It is engagement with the communities. It is employment creation. It is social policy. It is understanding their perception of hurt and pain when something happens in their community. And if we are involved in the communities, then there's a less likelihood that can happen.
Later, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines noted that Deputy Speaker Esmond Ford, who occupied the Speaker's chair, gave Dr. Munilal some latitude in drawing reference to the protests in parts of the nation's capital on Monday.
I heard the member make recommendations that the resolution to that, and I agree with him, couldn't be only about law enforcement, as was very effectively instituted yesterday, but it had to do with unemployment and social issues of education and all of these matters.
Minister Hines recalled after protests similar to those which occurred on Monday had occurred in 2018, the Community Recovery Program was established.
And his team, and of course, the policy and the recommendations were accepted by the cabinet and have been dispensed through various ministries: education, youth development, national service, community development, all of the ministries, in order to give life to some of the recommendations of Professor Watson's, Dr. Watson, Watkins's committee.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grenada, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.